Hi, Erin.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have a chat with you today. Thanks so much for being open to talking.
Of course.
You're such a beautiful light in the fertility community.
Oh, thank
And
you.
as the creator of My Beautiful Blender, share with us where that came from.
Honestly, I was just, like for years, I just didn't talk about any of the stuff that had happened. I think most of us kind of go through hard stuff and keep our heads down. And then one day I was just like, I cannot keep it in anymore. And so my friend was like, why don't you like blog about it? And she helped me create this blog. I wrote like 10 or 12 essays like in 1 week. And then I was like, now what? And she's like, well, you should probably put it out there. I was like, how? And I was like, I don't know. She was like, put it on Instagram. I was like, well, okay, why not? And so then the name came from just, I don't know, I was looking up like words that meant, a difficult time or like hardships.
Yeah.
But what was also behind all that is like the beauty in the challenges and the beauty in working through a tough time in our marriage and working through all the emotions and all the good that had come out of it. So I kind of felt like I needed to have a little bit of a juxtaposition between the words, and that's just kind of what came out. A lot of people will confuse it and like put in the word blender. I was like, no, but didn't think about that one, but it is.
No, I love how you focus on it is a mix of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful and just kind of like when you're going through fertility struggles, I mean, it's a mix of so many things.
Yeah.
And
it is
that pain and heartbreak and how you and I have both kind of come through that other side, but it was a long road for you. I know in the beginning, even just diagnosed at 26, right? With unexplained fertility.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was 26 and we just like didn't even know anything. And, when you're 26, we were one of the first ones to get married out of our friends and first ones to want to have babies. And so we had nothing to even compare it to or like really talk to anybody because nobody was even at that point in their lives yet, really. And you think you're 26, you're young, you're healthy, and you thought you were getting a period because I was on birth control. And then when you don't, and then you don't really know why, and then your OB just says, go see a fertility specialist. It's like, oh,
I think Nick just walked by.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
What?
How do I get out?
Okay, let me fix it this way.
Okay. It's all good. It's all good. A beautiful blender.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, would you be open to sharing a bit? So when you started writing, what year was that when you started writing your blogs?
2018. So it was like the October-ish 2018 is when I decided to kind of start. Oh no, I take that back. 2019, I think.
2019 was when you kind of created your account?
Yes. 2019. Because then I'm thinking Ari was actually like her transfer worked shortly after that. So that was, and she was 2020. So yeah, 2019. And so since when was I 26? 2010. It was a long road for sure.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So writing, that seemed to help you. I mean, like me too. I feel like writing was a therapeutic outlet. And definitely, as you're wanting to share and help others, just putting it out there, right? Like, that's what I love about you, Erin. It's like, you have this open heart where you are so just kind of transparent about real life challenges through this ride.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think like there's so much stuff that nobody talks about, things that like nobody told us about. And I think those were some of the bigger challenges because look, everybody knows like, you're going to do your shots. Everybody knows it's going to hurt. Everybody knows like the hormones can affect you, maybe not to what degree, but I think all the little things that like nobody tells you about are one of the most challenging, how it can affect your mental health, your marriage, your, I don't know, just like little things like that would always come up that I was like, wow, we don't talk about this enough. The way you crash after you stop all the medication when things don't work anymore. And then you're kind of left with like nothing, and no plan. And it's a scary situation. And, the way your hormones drop also are affecting your mental health, and people don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. They just say, okay, get off the medication and then we'll talk to you in a few weeks, and you're just left to your own demise. And it's hard.
Even so open about how you and your husband have done therapy together and on your own. And did that kind of start more when you were going through fertility treatments, or was that something before?
We started therapy definitely before. Well, so our fertility treatment started so early in our marriage. I mean, basically within our first year. So we weren't doing therapy then.
Yeah.
But nothing was perfect by any means. We just were young, and we also, nobody talked about therapy or anything, or how maybe it's a good idea to do it regardless. And so we started like full on therapy. I think we were about, I don't know, like 5 years into our marriage.
Yeah.
4 years. We had the twins, and we were going more so, I think, at the beginning because he thought I needed to go, but he was going with me. And so one of the biggest challenges was, we would sit in therapy and okay, we'd talk and we'd get things out, but then like nothing would really change at home after a couple of days. And so it took for us to hit rock bottom, which was a few years after the twins were born, to finally say, hey, I think we're going to give each other like 6 months to see if we can make this work. And it's not, like, we're going to have to go our separate ways because it was just too much. And I think that really sparked something in him to where he's like, okay, maybe I should give this a try. And I've always said how proud I am of him, because I'm sure that was not easy, because I think when you have never been exposed to therapy and never been told that like that's not a bad thing, and have always been kind of, he's always been like a go kind of guy, and so to have to sit down and like look at his past and all that I think affects so many of us that nobody realizes. I think infertility was just kind of like what made everything crash and burn. I don't think it was the only reason that we needed intervention, or we needed therapy. I think it just put the cherry on top that was like, wow, okay. So I always say, like, had we not gone through that, I don't know if like we would have been this strong today, because it did make us, hit that rock bottom. And I don't think everybody needs to do that. I think people can, work on things without getting there. But for us, we really did need it.
How old were your twins again when you said things were kind of at rock bottom?
Gosh, I think they were like 4 or 5. So it was also the point where like they could start to see things, and I just did not want them to see all that, and I'm sure they saw it before, but it's like, they're much more aware at 4 than they are at 1. So it just changed the dynamic, I think, for me.
I think our fertility challenges can really exacerbate like those relationship challenges too, I mean,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, like, we have different coping mechanisms, and that's another thing, like nobody said, hey, by the way, this might be challenging. You guys should get like some help to really be able to talk about your feelings, because he's the type of person that's like, let's not talk about it. How do we fix it? Let's move forward. And I appreciate the let's try and fix it aspect of it, but I also need to talk about everything that happened. And for a lot of years, like when we had to have the reduction from our triplets to twins, he didn't want to talk about that. And so I was trying to respect that, and also thought, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't something we talk about. But clearly we needed to, and a lot of other things. But I think that just kept adding to like all the stress,
For those listening who maybe don't know your story, can you kind of take us back to the beginning? Just, I know you've with your IUI and how many, you've had a lot of transfers and just in your kids' age, I know. So
I know.
Maybe just like a little highlight of kind of like where you started.
Yeah, sure. So I started actually with an IUI because I did have quite a bit of follicles. And so the doctors just thought I needed them to mature. And I do think things were a lot different back then, because I think looking back now, I don't think they would allow an IUI to happen if I had that many mature eggs that had the potential of being fertilized. I'm not sure. I also went into it very heads down. I didn't do any research. I didn't ask questions. I didn't advocate for myself, and I just wanted to have a baby. So I was like, do whatever,
Yeah.
So the first IUI worked, but clearly I had more than one mature egg dropping. We ended up with 3, and I knew I had to go into the fertility center around like 7-ish weeks, which was rare because back then, like, they're like, we'll just see you at 9 weeks.
Okay.
But I was bleeding a lot. And so I was like, I need to come in. I thought we were having an abortion, a miscarriage.
Oh.
And they said, actually, this is common with multiples because there's so much activity. And so they're like, well, you have triplets. And I'm like, oh,
you're like, how'd you react when you heard that? Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was just grateful that everything was okay. But then it was like, okay, wow, we were not expecting that. We were barely expecting twins. We knew that there was maybe a chance, but like, we were like, no, it's not going to happen to us,
Yeah. Oh my God.
And then the doctors quickly pulled us into the office after we got done with the examination. And then they're just like, we really highly suggest for you to have a reduction because you're so small. The likelihood of all of them surviving is very slim. And the risk of complications is very high. And also like your health and your, there's a much higher risk of your, you could die. I mean, like to put it bluntly. And that just really scared us because we were definitely not prepared for that.
Wow.
And so we both knew what we had to do, even though like we didn't want to have to make that decision. And at the time there weren't clinics that were doing it where we lived. And so we had to drive like 2 hours, spend the night at a hotel, go in the next morning, get the procedure done, and then come home. And, my husband was like, let's never talk about this again.
Were you not in California at that time?
We were, yeah. But
okay.
I don't know. I mean, look, this was like 12 years ago. So a lot has changed. Been normalized, which is amazing. But yeah, they just kind of sent us to the clinic that I'm assuming, thought very highly of. And so we had to drive to LA for that. So we're south of LA.
Okay. Yep.
So
I know, right here in San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah, I lived there for 9 years. It's crazy.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I actually lived really close to you. I used to live in Cardiff at one point.
Oh my gosh.
For a year and a half, Cardiff by the sea. So yeah, we'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah, that's like my my couple times a week run. That's where I go.
Yeah, that's so great. So your girls now, your twins, how old are they now? 11?
They're 11 and a half.
11 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, let's see. So your twins, obviously they're healthy, thriving. Yeah. And at what point did you decide we want to grow our family?
So after we went to therapy, after we kind of like decided, actually we are working on ourselves, everything's so much better than it ever was. We're like, let's have another one. And to be honest, like we never were not trying, like it was just one of those, well, let's just, I guess if it happens, like great,
Yeah.
We never did timed or like I didn't check my ovulation, any of that, but I really wasn't getting a period. So I was like, this isn't going to happen, but so it was a good 6 years of like nothing,
because the unexplained infertility was your original diagnosis.
It was my diagnosis. Yeah. To this day, they still don't really understand why.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate. I think that in hindsight, there could have been a lot more testing done, but like, we are. So yeah, so then when the twins were, and they were gonna start kindergarten, that summer 2017 was when they started, like in August. And so that's a summer that we said, okay, let's just really try. We both knew we would have to go into the fertility center, and we just said no IUI because we don't want multiples, and let's just do IVF. And we're like, look, IUI works so well. I'm sure IVF would work even better. We're like, we'll get to choose our baby. We'll be pregnant by December. This is great. And
we always think it's going to go that smooth, right?
Yeah, that was our mindset. That's just what we thought IVF was. And once again, didn't do our own research, didn't like ask enough questions. But so we went in and we did that. And then we were at this first clinic and we did our first retrieval. We only had one PGS normal embryo, transferred that embryo, failed. And I was devastated. I was like, wait a minute, because I was like, I feel pregnant. I have all the symptoms and, all the things from the drugs.
Yeah.
And I had reached out to my doctor and I was like, hey, what's next? And I'm like, well, let's just do it again. Like, just like that. And so I didn't even like really check in with my doctor. This clinic just was like, here's your medication, start over.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So we did it again, literally pretty much the same results. Failed, transfer failed, devastation. Then we're like, let's just do an IUI. Like, let's just do it. Whatever at this point,
Yeah.
That failed. And that like just was earth shattering for me, it felt like. And I remember we were in Hawaii because we decided to take a little vacation for the twins' birthday. And my husband's like, we need to take a break.
Yeah.
And I was so resistant of that, but I was like, okay, if you give me a start day, then I'll like agree to this. So we gave ourselves 3 months of just like a break financially, a break mentally, physically, all that, which in hindsight was like the best thing ever because we just needed that, but when you're in it, you're like, I'm wasting time.
Yeah. I've heard you share this story too before where you felt like time will be lost. And I think a lot of women can relate to that, like feeling like, need to be really moving forward more quicker than you need to. And it's just so important to have a break. Right. And just,
it is. And I can't stress that enough for people that are out there, like starting their journey or in the middle of it. Like, you are not going to waste time. I promise you. Like, taking care of yourself and like regrouping and your body and your mental health.
100%.
Like, it's all, kind of embedded into what this journey is. And it's really needed. And I actually wish that the fertility centers would be a little bit more conscious of that and say that out loud to the people, because it's like, I know sometimes you don't want to hear anything from anybody else, but like your doctor or who you're trusting. And I think if they would be able to like say that to you in a way where it's like, I don't know, just like more structured, I think it would help a lot of people. But
I agree. And at this point, didn't you switch clinics at this point?
Yeah. So I had reached out to my same clinic again, and my friends were like, it's very weird that you're not really meeting your doctor or seeing your doctor. At this clinic, I was seeing a different nurse almost every time, never saw my doctor for any appointments. They're like, the amount of money you're paying, like you should be seeing a doctor.
Seriously.
So I was referred to this other clinic and moved there over the summer, did a retrieval. We decided not to test our embryos for this third retrieval because we had heard like mixed reviews, and we're like, look, whatever, let's just save that like $5,000 and not do it, We ended up transferring and it worked, and we were just like so happy. We thought, this is it, we have our child. And that was December 2018. In January we miscarried, and so we were about almost 9 weeks. And
I'm so sorry. It's hard.
It is hard. And we had already heard the heartbeat. We had already told the twins, or seen the heartbeat. So it was kind of really confusing because, they tell you once you get past that, like there's a much smaller percentage of you miscarrying. And I, again, didn't know anybody that had miscarried. I didn't know like people went through that, going through IVF, because I'm like, well, everything's so calculated.
Right.
So that was really, really hard. Miscarrying, of course. And sorry, I don't know where the camera for me. Okay, there's and so it ended up lasting a really long time. It was like a 3-month miscarriage. I ended up doing the misoprostol pill because they're just like, that usually works for people really well. Hi, my name's Erin, and I'm the outlier for every percentage and every data.
The outlier. Oh my God.
Always outlier. Wow. And so I had to like catch my tissue, take it into the office, all that kind of stuff. And then it wasn't enough. And so I had to do it again. And that time it was like, I bled so much like through the night. I like couldn't walk the next day because I lost so much blood. And I was like, well, at least hopefully that worked, but my levels weren't dropping. So I was like so pregnant still, and like for months. And so it just messes with your mind because, one, all you want to do is move forward, like keep trying. And two, it's like, you're just reminded of this every single day because you're still bleeding and it doesn't stop. So finally at like month 3, I was like, what, like they had me come in, they did another like hysteroscopy, and then they realized that there was still some tissue left over.
Yeah.
So I had to do a DNC after all of
that. Wow. And I know you've encouraged others to like go more to a DNC, right?
I have. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor. I know every single case is so different. Everybody has a different mindset of what is right for them. If I were to go through that again, I would personally go to a DNC right away.
Yeah.
Like it just was too emotional for me. And it wasn't comfortable, you know?
Yeah.
And so once that was done, I said, we have to defrost our embryos, test them. I know it's going to drop their grade and their like strength, but I cannot transfer one that I don't know is normal, because we were just thinking it's probably the embryo.
I think a lot of people wonder about that too, real quick, just like about testing
once they're frozen.
Yeah, exactly. So
I wouldn't, like, I know clinics don't recommend it, but with I just said, I can't go through that again. And so if that's even a possibility because of the embryo, I can't mentally do it, you know?
I'm a big believer in doing the genetic testing. Like we only had one healthy one out of 7. So, I mean, I could have miscarried. I mean, it's just, for us, it was the right decision to test them.
Yeah. And look, some that are low mosaics, like definitely make it. And I like, am a full believer in transferring those, but you could also have a really high mosaic one. And so you don't really know.
Right.
So we retested, we defrosted, like, I think it was 3 of them. And then anyways, only got back 1 normal. Transferred that one. The chances of it implanting were much lower because we had to do all that to it again. I failed. And then I was kind of ready to quit that summer of 2019. My husband's like, let's just do 1 more retrieval.
Wow.
I know.
Do you think he helped you really keep going forward? Like
he did. He really did. Because I think at that point, like, he just knew how much I wanted this next baby. And obviously he did too. And he's just like, look, let's do it all right. Like, let's do everything by the book. He's like, I had been doing acupuncture for a year now. I'd been like really doing a lot more things for myself. And so I said, fine, we'll do 1 more.
Yeah.
We did. We actually ended up with the best results, which is why I always say, like, even though it might have been later in your journey and you're older, it doesn't always mean that like you're going to get worse results, you know?
Yeah.
Because this was now like 3 years later almost. So we did that. We got 3 healthy normal embryos and 1 low mosaic. And so we were like, okay, this is definitely going to work. And so the first 2 transfers from that did not work. By January 2020, I was like, that's it. I was the most depressed I think I'd been the whole entire time. I had just been on medication after medication after medication, and then like quickly stopping them, you know? So like the hormones were just all over the place. And that's what I mean by like, nobody tells you how hard you crash when you drop the hormones. And so I think it was a combination of that, and obviously just only having 1 healthy embryo left. And I was just like, I don't think I can go through that emotional devastation.
And you had 2 other little kids that you're taking care of. I mean,
and I just like, you know, the guilt that you get with secondary infertility at that point is just like, wow, it's a lot, you know, and like people's comments don't help. And so there's so much like wrapped up into it that, again, nobody talks about, nobody like suggests for you to talk to somebody about. So, but my husband, I ended up switching. What happened was my doctor wasn't there, and I really needed to have this like follow-up meeting. So my nurse was like, well, talk to this doctor. He's great. Like, and if you don't like his answers, we'll still talk to your doctor when he comes back.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So we went into that. I brought him a list of questions. I loved him. We connected. It was like this really weird energy that I think had been missing my entire journey. And all those doctors are amazing, very capable. I don't think it's like him. I think it was just the overall package. You know? and
You
how.
want to share who your clinic and who your new doctor
so
was?
I went to Reproductive Partners at
Okay.
Scripps in La Jolla.
Okay.
And I think I've seen a lot of the doctors there just because sometimes you have to,
Yeah.
they're all great. My doctor actually went back to Switzerland where he's from, sadly.
Oh,
I still talk to him because I still ask him all these questions just about like everything. His wife's a gynecologist. So I'm like, can you ask your wife?
who was it? Who was your doctor?
Dr. Alexander Quaz.
Okay. Okay, cool. I always like knowing who the doctors are that you love.
Oh yeah. He's just
Mhm.
very like matter of fact, but also super chatty. And like any question I had, he was just like made you feel like that's a great question, but here's why you're not going to do that. You know what I mean? Like he totally just made sense of everything in a way that like helped my husband and I really understand. And so he said something to me that I love repeating. And he said, hey, look, like sometimes the coin just doesn't land on the right side, but if you keep trying it, then it probably will, And I don't know, that stuck with me because to be honest, we had done so many tests. I'd done like pelvic MRIs. I'd done 3 hysteroscopies. I did a brain MRI to see if I had like glands blockage and stuff. And nothing was giving us an actual answer. There was like always like little things here and there, but nothing to like really say, oh, that's why, He was just like, look, sometimes there's people like you that we don't really understand what is happening, but like the more you do it, the more chances. And he's like, and that sucks because probably most people don't get to how many transfers you've done. Most people will end up before that because it's so hard. It's so hard mentally.
And were you paying for this out of pocket or did you have any coverage?
No, I didn't have coverage. So that's another thing too. People just can't do that.
Right.
And that's what he was saying too. He's like, that's also why you don't see as many cases like yours because people just can't,
Yeah.
So many reasons. And so it just all kind of made sense to me. I was like, that's like a really interesting way of seeing it. And he's like, you can, as much as how do you detach yourself from your embryo, right? But he's like, if you can detach yourself from like the fact that, look, it's an embryo, you're going to try to have it work. And if it doesn't, like, you'll think of something else or whatever, So it just like made sense because nothing was making sense, So we did, and we went forward with that transfer. I asked to switch doctors to him, which I know is like a little weird for people. Like, did you feel weird? I was like, I did. But ultimately, like my gut was just like, you need to switch doctors.
Yeah. Always listen to your gut, right? Listen to your intuition and telling you what to do. And you did.
Yeah. And, we did it. And this was the first time we didn't have like if this fails, we're going to do this kind of plan. And, I just was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to like count my steps. I'm not going to count how many minutes I've been up or walking or not walking or like, what exactly I'm eating. I'm not, I wasn't like drinking wine or anything, but I wasn't like as worried as I had been in the past. I also did change. I had always had a really thin lining. I was on like 6 estrogen patches, all the pills, nothing was getting it past like a 7. Even though the clinic was like, look, a 7 still works. So that's why they were never that concerned about it. But I'm like, it's not working for me. So let's do something different. And they actually put me on estrogen shots, which I didn't even really know were an option until I said something. And a lot of women have been like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that's an option either. And they have similar estrogen situations. Yeah.
Through your clinic, you were able to do that?
Yeah. And so they gave those to me. They're a lot more intense. But my lining went up to like a 9.8 for transfer. And I, in my heart of hearts, know that was like a huge thing that helped because I don't know, like,
a lot of women want to thicken their lining. So that's good to know about.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I know there's so many that work at a 7.5, like their data shows it, but like there's some people that just don't,
Were you doing any special foods or any diet kind of things? Or?
I mean, I did like the pomegranate. I was on a Mediterranean diet just because I always usually am. I was, having the nuts and, the seaweed, all that kind of stuff. So I was definitely like doing all the typical things that, they say helps, like But, and again, seeing an acupuncturist weekly.
Okay.
But my
Are you
lining,
also seeing a naturopath?
so the naturopath wasn't until after, like, it was not till like last year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so then that last transfer worked and everything was great except for like the world shutting down, and to go see every single appointment I was by myself. And after like so many years of trying and also like getting so much bad news, every appointment was like a nightmare for me. But, we got
these
her.
babies. So. These babies are going to have quite the stories, aren't they? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, your 3 kiddos are just the cutest. Oh my gosh. How is it like juggling mom life? And I mean, you've just been so amazing at like sharing all aspects of your life and like really taking care of yourself. I know that's a huge part of going through fertility, challenges is really like self-care and, what kind of things helped you as you're navigating through this long road?
I think just like setting time for myself has always been something that like really helps my mental sanity. I think like I love like working out. And so I need to have an hour in the morning where I can do that. So like hiring help, our nanny's amazing. She comes in the morning, I can take my kids to school and then like work out, and then still see the baby. That was a huge game changer for me. And I think just like, with my husband and I, we do weekly date nights. That really, really helps. We reconnect. We know to look forward to that. And look, I know it's hard to like find help and, help that you trust, but I think we've done a pretty good job with like, I'll reach out to anybody, and I think like
the sound is a little bit, there you go. It's all good.
Hear me?
It's all good. Yep. It was just static for a second.
Oh, weird. Yeah. So just like, I always like, we found our nanny on Craigslist, for example.
Okay.
I'll reach out to like high school kids that I know through like friends of friends, to help with weekends. And so, there's times when like we don't get out until 7:30 because I have to put the baby down, but like we'll get out for a couple hours. It's just like little things that help, that you can look forward to. It just really helps us.
Yeah, I know you've been so great about sharing, vulnerably about marriage and it really takes work.
Yeah.
And the things that help you in addition to the therapy and the date nights. And like I read that you do walks together and just communicating and like really letting each other know what your needs are.
Yeah, that's been huge. And like him being receptive to it. And, every weekend we do try and take walks together, or like we'll do a little class together if I can, figure somebody out to come watch the kids. And we just kind of set that time aside. Like we both we don't plan anything. Like we try not to see anybody. Like we're not huge like over planners because we already have so much going on. But I'm not like constantly like, oh yeah, let's meet here, let's meet there for an hour. It just becomes too much. And so if we set that time aside and we both like agree, hey, it's just kind of like an agreed time for us, it just has become that way where we're like, oh, but then we're going to miss our walk. We both just like really look forward to that, So we really try not to let anything interfere with that, anything interfere with like our date nights, as much as possible. And it's just been really, really important for us.
Have your therapists, have they given you any kind of strategies or things that you could share with others who may be in like a place, like any like little tip or thing that might help somebody who is
I think really like the biggest thing, if you're not in therapy, people always ask how I got Nick to go to therapy. And like, again, for us, it was like hitting rock bottom. And I always say, you don't have to, but I think you have to be able to, you can't push somebody to go. And so even if you start going and that other person doesn't want to go, I think that that'll just be really eye-opening and like will help you maybe even understand your partner. And maybe that will get your partner to like kind of see that you're putting in that work, I think looking at it as like, no, it's not like we need to be getting fixed. We just need support as a couple. And like, how can we make what's already good even better? It's kind of like a good mindset, because it takes away the stigma of like, oh, we're just doing so bad that we need to go see somebody, and it just gives like a space for both of you to be really open and vulnerable, and being vulnerable. I constantly remind him, like, remember, like, be vulnerable. Like, that's, you know, it's sexy. It's good. It like, it helps us connect. And that's what I need. That's my love language, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you each, like, you go on your own and then you go together. Is that right?
Yeah. So we like reach out to her when we both have different needs. And then we book at least now once a month to just, even if nothing's really going on, like there's always something that like we need to bow over a little bit, you know? Yeah.
No, I just love that you're so transparent about this, because it's often not talked about. And yours is one of the accounts that I do see you just openly share, like, these struggles, like it's real life, you know?
Yeah. I think this is like, you know, we can get so caught up in like all the pretty stuff that people share on Instagram. And look, I love going on there and seeing pretty things. Like, I'm not, it's not like I'm like searching for the bad by any means.
Right.
So I get it. I get why, like, but even me, who like totally gets that Instagram is just a snippet, will still get caught up and be like, oh wow, like they look like they have the most perfect marriage, or the most, and I'm like, that's probably not true. It's probably not true. It's probably not true. You know?
Does that exist?
Yeah. And so like, I think the more we can just talk about like, hey, you know, we had a crappy day, but like, I'm sure it'll be better tomorrow, you know? I don't know. I think it's just a way for human beings to connect and like loosen up that like crazy expectation and stigma, and maybe create this like safer space for our kids to grow up in, and not have these like wild expectations of like, oh, let's put two completely different humans in a house together and expect them to be happy and fine every day and never talk about their past. Like, it's just wild, you know?
Yeah. Our girls are watching us, right? They're learning from us how we handle conflict, how we handle challenges.
So, for sure.
How we self-regulate, calm ourselves if we're
totally.
Right.
I agree.
And your little one, oh my God. And you speak Spanish to your little one. It's the cutest thing ever.
She's fun. Yeah. I try to do that with the twins, and now that they're older, they're like, you know, they kind of, it's a different battle with them because they're just in their own space. But so the baby, like, she speaks both. She really knows how to differentiate both, which is amazing. The twins did too, and they still do. They just are more anti-speaking it to me. But one day they'll thank me. Yeah, it's great. I'm happy to be able to give that to them, because I do think it's a gift to be able to pass that on.
And so what's keeping you busy these days? I mean, I know I was reading about like your background, because you used to do like gymnastics with
I used to have
a
mobile gymnastics program,
and yoga certified.
I know. I kind of was like floating all over the place with what like could fit into my kids' world, because I've been a stay-at-home mom forever and I love it. So just like more of that. I mean, now that the kids are older, they're having us drive them everywhere is what it feels like. I mean, obviously we say yes and we put them into these activities, but it's a lot. They're both on like they're both on a dance team, on a gymnastics team. And then the little one just kind of comes along for the ride. So I feel like we're in the car a lot, or going to some event. But I love it. And I know that it's just a season, and at some point this is all gonna go away. So, you know, kind of just have to hold on tight for now and do that. But I mean, I still, like I said, I like to work out. I still do yoga. You know, we still go on our walks, and I try to meet up with friends, you know, every so often. And
you're so supportive with women in the fertility space. I know you've gone places and visited. Right? Fertility sisters.
Really amazing friends. And that's like a huge thing. I think if anyone, you know, needs extra support, like it's all there, you know.
It is.
So just connect, find accounts that you like and just follow them or message them. Like, you know, people always say to me like, wow, you wrote back to me. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I? You know, I guess, you know, so like, most people I think are pretty kind. And if they're not, then find another one, you know, and I'm here for anybody that needs it.
No, I love that about you, Erin. It's just like, we are real humans, right? Like, we're here. This is why we do this work. And I know you've been such an advocate in this space and encouraging women to, you know, really stay empowered on their path. Right.
Yeah. It's important. Stay hopeful. And, you know, like, again, reach out for any help that you might need. And no question is, a silly question. Honestly, like I've asked the craziest questions throughout the whole thing, and it just, whatever helps your peace of mind.
For sure. Did you have any kind of like mental, like a mantra or something as you were going through your fertility journey?
I think just like staying hopeful. I'm very into signs. I'd like wish upon every 11/11, every rainbow. Yeah. And, even though nothing actualized right away, I just kind of kept thinking like, I'm seeing this for a reason. And that just like helped me, and as much as my therapist always said, like, your mind can't make or break something, like, so she's like, so why not think about it in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of help get out of that anxious feeling, even though no matter what, you're still anxious.
Sorry, I know you guys are probably getting ready.
He's just like, well, it's fine.
Oh, well, I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you and just being so open. And what else are you looking forward to coming up? Anything else big coming up?
We have so many dance competitions.
Mm-hmm.
But just like, we do have spring break coming up. We're going down to Mexico, so that'll be nice. I love reconnecting with the family there. Before that, my husband's traveling for 2 weeks starting Monday, so I'm like preparing myself for that.
Right.
But that's that's it. I think we're gonna try and go to Europe this summer, which will be nice.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
I know. Yeah. So lots to look forward to, but so much to get through before that. But that's okay. That's life. So.
Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting with me. And
thank you. I know we could go on for like
when I'm out visiting friends, it's like a second home. I lived out there for so long. And
that's so cool. I didn't know. We'll have to like reconnect and
chat. In Colorado now, but it was such a great time. And I thank you for all you do in the fertility community. And
thank you for having me.
People want to reach out to you, they can find you at My Beautiful Blender, right?
Yeah.
Is your handle. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, and bye.
Bye.